Okay, let's get into this. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Jailton Almeida, who this past weekend at the Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina for UFC on ABC, UFC Fight Night, Rozenstruik versus Almeida, defeated Jairzinho Rozenstruik by submission via rear naked choke. The official time, 3:43 of the very first round. Mark, Almeida making it to the big stage and succeeding and impressing. Give us your take on his performance.
Not a ton of drama in that one. It's like clockwork for this man thus far. You did have that one moment, like in the first 5 seconds, where Rozenstruik stuffed a takedown and kind of shoved Almeida away, and you were like, oh, damn. And then 25 more seconds tick away, and the fight's over. Not actually, but effectively, because Almeida's second shot gets it to the ground, and he gets to go to work. And he was patient. He spent like a good 3 minutes probably working to get to mount, and Rozenstruik was calm. You could tell he was trying very hard not to do anything dumb that would provide an opening, but it didn't matter. Almeida's just surgical. He gets to mount finally at like a minute 30 left. The ground and pound starts, Rozenstruik turns, and the fight is over. Yet another sub for Almeida, yet another win for Almeida where he basically never even gets touched, and the dominance at this point is just getting a bit silly. So I wouldn't be shocked if this man has a hard time getting someone to say yes for his next fight.
Omar, let's bring you in here. Talking technique, give us your take on Almeida's, Mark's word was perfect, surgicalness in his biggest win of his career thus far.
For me, it really kind of established the fact right now that the heavyweight division is very lacking in ground technique, right? Jailton Almeida is like 30 pounds less than this man. Like you'd have to put a weight vest on him to even come close to Rozenstruik. And it didn't really matter. There's so much technique, so much precision behind how Jailton Almeida comes inside. And the one thing that makes him a problem is his takedowns. The fact that he can take you down. As a jiu-jitsu guy, that's generally the knock, right? Is when they get to the ground, they'll get you. And like we saw with Kron Gracie, what if he can't really get you to the ground that way?
Yeah.
Right? Or keep you down to the ground. And but Almeida doesn't really have that problem. He is quite exceptional getting down to the ground, keeping you down to the ground, and just chewing you up. Big guys, I almost think, are his specialty because they just don't know what they're doing. And we've had this era now for the last however many years now, especially since technical guys now like DC and, Stipe haven't really been super, DC retired obviously, but Stipe not having been very active and stuff like that, where the equalizers have come in and just wrecked dudes because everybody's just standing. Curtis Blades can't find an entry to save his life, quite literally. Yeah. Otherwise, he would be probably a champion right now. But he leads face first and doesn't dip down and shoot in. And like, I'm not trying to tell Curtis Blades how to wrestle, but at the same time, it's on camera. I don't know what to tell you,
Right.
So, he's a problem. And I think that, I feel like the way Jones is in public now, like he's obviously a heel. I feel like he's full heel at this point.
You think so? Jones?
Yeah, 100%. He stays talking shit out of left field. Unprompted. No one asked.
Everybody talks shit.
Not like Jones. Like he'll throw jabs at people, especially, and I feel like it's, the more I think about it, I feel like they're subtle jabs to people because he kind of wants these fights, right? The Ngannou thing we might, we'll get to in a little bit, saying like, oh, I might just fight this next guy and I might just leave. I don't have anything else to do in the division. And it's almost one, you think, oh, he's probably, telling the truth and, why even come back? And another part of it is it might be the way Izzy kind of talks in the different sense where he's saying, show me something, right? Because we're going to get to a point now where Almeida is going to end up grinding through the entire division. Now, how the hell are you going to deny him a title shot? And unless you just leave the division, to me, it seems like a bad look, especially if you're trying to go GOAT. Almeida is a killer, and it won't take him very long to run through, I think, the rest of the top of the division before he's warranted a title fight.
I mean, there are guys who can grapple when you get toward the top. I mean, obviously, Bones and Stipe, as you said, but I'm saying before we even get there, there is Sergey Spivak, who can grapple. There's Curtis Blades, who's a wrestler, as you said. Tom Aspinall can grapple. Like, there are challenges that are not guys he's just going to walk through. I mean, maybe he will, but I'm saying you wouldn't think as easily as you figured he would Rozenstruik.
100%. But when you talk about all of the guys that you just mentioned, not a lot of them have had those performances even earlier on in their career when they were fighting guys that weren't at the top of the division. Almeida so far, a guy who's smaller than basically everybody, has had these fucking fantastic performances against guys I think to a certain extent, we expect him to have fantastic performances against, right? So he's almost living up to this hype that we've put on top of him. Maybe that starts to slow down once he gets to the elite of the elite. Maybe he's not finishing guys left and right. But at the same time, against guys, from a performance standpoint, against guys that you just mentioned, he still seems to be kind of cream of the crop. You know what I mean? I would put him up against a lot of these top guys just based on performance.
Yeah, I mean, he's Brazilian Khabib. I think we said it in his debut.
Brazilian Khabib.
It's freaking accurate.
The beast, man.
Yeah, man. This marks 14 in a row for Maladinho Almeida. Still has yet to win a fight by decision. All of these wins have come by way of finish, most of them in the first round. And yet another one over a huge name in Biggie Boy Rozenstruik. Let's talk about Rozenstruik first and where he goes from here. So, after capping a 10-0 run to start his MMA career, he capped that run. That 10th win was his infamous knockout and lip destruction against Alistair Overeem. He's gone 3-5 since. Mark, what would you do with Rozenstruik next?
I thought that finally we could do Derek Lewis and Jairzinho Rozenstruik, which you guys have heard me ask for a lot of times on this show. But Derek Lewis just like 2 days ago got booked against Marcos Rogerio de Lima. So I guess that one's out the window. So I will say Tai Tuivasa. I want Tai to get a little bit of a step down after the 2 losses. I don't want him to fight another top 5 level guy. Let him potentially at least get a reset and let those 2 boys bang, and one of them gets right back on track, maybe with a big knockout.
Love that. Omar, do you have any other names that you would throw out there?
This is for Rozenstruik?
Yes.
What is Alexander Romanov doing?
Romanov? Didn't
I
he
don't
just...
I don't think he's matched up yet.
Didn't he just look terrible
Yes.
in his last fight?
Yes.
I'm sorry, did Rozenstruik look great?
That was he didn't look great because of a style thing. Romanov looked like I don't know
Listen, Rozenstruik came in with a lot of hype. He knocked a few guys out. He's been up and down. Like, to me, he's still got to prove himself. Because to me, he's still just a couple of, like, barbells on his hand. He doesn't seem to have, at least in my opinion, a ton of technique. You know what I mean? He has technique for what works for him, but when it comes to overall an elite level, I'm not really sold, and I never have been on Rozenstruik. To me, he's always been like maybe a top 10, top 15 fighter. But like the tippity top, these guys where it comes, these small little areas, I just don't think he has it, man. I think he has a lot of openings that guys can exploit, and I think a lot of them have.
I'm sure we'll find out where he's ranked in the Prio rankings, but
Amen.
let's talk about now.
The only rankings that matter, gentlemen.
That's right. It's true.
I'll tell you now because he's not in my movers because he only fell a couple spots, so it wasn't noteworthy enough for me to include. But he's number 11 in my rankings.
I like it.
Moment.
It checks.
Okay, let's turn our attention to this rising star, Jailton Almeida. Like I said, he's now won 14 in a row as a pro. Still undefeated in the UFC, obviously. Still yet to win a fight by decision. Omar, if your dreams come true, who is Almeida fighting next?
I mean, a lot of these names are really interesting. The Aspinalls, the Spivaks, the Blades. Curtis Blades just dropped the ball again, didn't he?
Yep. Yeah, he lost
recently.
Yes.
Knocked out.
Yeah. Give him blades. Give him blades.
Blades?
Give him a real wrestler. Give him a real grappler. Because I think at this point, that's probably the biggest knock, right? Is he's fighting all these guys that we know will probably kill him if they put his hands on him, but none of them are able to put their hands on him. So give him a guy who probably who knows when Curtis Blades shows up? He probably won't wrestle at all in that fight. But give him a guy who on paper should be wrestling and kind of working that way. Maybe he strikes with him and maybe Almeida knocks him out. Maybe he gets knocked out. Who knows? But I think he deserves the shot. I think the performances warrants it, and I think the matchup stylistically is very, very interesting on paper.
Mark, any other names?
So that's who I was going to say. And I thought you guys were going to be surprised that I moved him that far up the line. But yeah, I mean, so there's a reason that I say that. First of all, he asked for Tuivasa. That does nothing for me. We just saw that fight. He just beat Rozenstruik. You know what I mean? I like Tuivasa more than Rozenstruik, but style-wise, it's the same fight.
It's a horrible match.
So there are plenty of unbooked guys at heavyweight. Gane, Spivak, Derek Lewis, granted, that's the same fight again. Volkov, and Blades. The problem is you need to get someone to say yes to this fight. A lot of these guys kind of like Spivak just broke through. I'm sure that's the last thing he wants to do. Volkov's trying to work his way back up. Curtis Blades is sitting there, and he keeps fumbling the bag every time he gets back to the top. And he needs some type of springboard to let him get right back into the mix. And this is it. Like, let him be the one to take this challenge. I could see him saying yes to it. And we get to see, as Omar alluded to, an actual test of Jailton Almeida. And maybe it's not even the offensive wrestling from Blades. It may just be the defensive wrestling in that he is not letting Almeida take him down. And then he is able to outstrike Almeida. It could go that route too. So it would answer a lot of questions, and I would like to take that step. I don't need to see Almeida run through another striker.
It is the most intriguing matchup that I can think of for Almeida. It's also a tremendous matchup for Blades, the wrestler versus the jiu-jitsu practitioner. My eyes will be glued. And I've been saying for, I don't even know how long at this point, that I think that the most interesting stylistic matchup for Jon Jones, in my opinion, is Curtis Blades. I now have some questions about Jailton Almeida against Jon Jones and some intrigue there as well, given his size, clear athleticism, his frame, and his jiu-jitsu. So at heavyweight, man, oh man, I would love to see that if that could happen. But who knows, as Omar was alluding to earlier, who knows if Jones is even going to be there. Okay, let's move on, unless you guys have anything else you are dying to say about either of these two heavyweights. Congrats to Jailton Almeida. Cannot wait for his next one, whoever it might be against, hopefully against Curtis Blades. In the co-main event of this UFC Fight Night, a very consequential clash went down in the light heavyweight division between Johnny Walker and Anthony Smith, with Johnny Walker walking away victorious, defeating Anthony Lionheart Smith by unanimous decision. The scores read 29-28, 30-27, and 30-27, all for the Brazilian Johnny Walker. Omar, start us off first this time. What was your take of the very patient performance of this new Johnny Walker 2.0 over Anthony Smith?
Yeah, he's not button mashing anymore. He's taking his time. He's measured, a lot more measured now, picking his strikes. And I don't know, man. When Anthony Smith loses, bro, Anthony Smith fucking loses. And the more that fight went on, the more difficult that fight became to watch. Like, at one point, he was like, I think, trying to hype himself up and put himself in a fucked up mindset back to when his family had gotten like broken into, like his house. And I think he tried to.
That was.
Dude, he tried to make Johnny Walker, like, poor Johnny Walker's in the cage, like, what? What'd I do? Poor guy is so fucking confused, but Johnny Walker's like, you're trying to hurt my family. You're trying to hurt my family. Like, he's trying to like have a psychological moment there where he like makes Johnny Walker the villain of his story, I guess, or whatever's happening up there, trying to hype himself up at the, towards the end of that fight, or was it the middle? I don't even know, man. It got weird. It got weird in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mark, Your thoughts?
First off, Johnny Walker by decision, baby. How many called that one?
You did, dude.
Yeah, right.
Boy, he looked great. And how about John Kavanaugh? I guess it's not just Conor McGregor after all. He's got Johnny Walker in a great place right now.
Yeah.
The biggest story of this fight, I thought, was the calf kick. Anthony Smith took damage to that left leg, and it became a factor, pretty early on already. I loved the way that Walker was doubling up immediately on the calf kicks. That was pretty cool. It's not something that you see every day, just firing it twice. But Anthony Smith is a dog. We know this. Even in round one when he was getting cracked and he got dropped, I couldn't believe the way that he pushed through to get that takedown. I thought it was about to be over right there. But all in all, he struggled with the combo of attributes that is Johnny Walker, which, again, we kind of touched on last week. He's a fighter's fighter, Anthony Smith. If he has a chance, he'll be in a fight to the end. But he just, that blend of Walker's length and speed and athleticism was a puzzle that Smith could not figure out. He couldn't even get himself into the fight. Walker was able to control the range. He was countering beautifully all fight. He never let Smith kind of corral him the way that he would like to. And then at like the 3-minute mark of that fight in the final round, I thought Anthony Smith got shut down. Like, he took a couple big ones to the calf. His mobility was just like, yep, that's all we got. I'm out of here. And I really think Johnny Walker had about 2 minutes there where he could have absolutely finished Anthony Smith. And for whatever reason, he kind of coasted. Like, it was there for the taking. And it was almost like he didn't want to finish him, it seemed. So he maybe blew a chance for an even bigger statement. But either way, it's a big win for him. And he is finally fighting the way we all thought he could fight some years ago.
Yeah. To that point, I thought he, in his kind of broken English in his post-fight interview in the Octagon, I thought he said something to that end of like, I wanted to fight 3 rounds, almost like he was saying I did not want to finish him.
I hate when guys say that.
He's an idiot. He said that shit before. But,
yeah.
I really think that he's playing it safe because he's gotten fucked up before. And he gets to a point where he gets too excited. And we see it with a lot of fighters. He gets too excited. Michel Pereira is a perfect example. Earlier on in that career, you want to talk about button mashing? That dude was doing backflips in the cage unprompted. Like, in mid-fight. You know what I mean? And then he's like, oh, shit, I'm gassed in the 3rd round. How did that happen?
Yeah.
Like, and guys are learning early, especially the guys who are very excited in the cage. They got to be a little bit more measured. And I think Johnny Walker still has not found his style. I think Kavanaugh is trying to rein him in.
Yeah.
But once he finds, if he does ever find, a perfect blend of, technical Johnny versus when he needs to break out wild Johnny, he could be a real problem going forward. But like, to Mark's credit, there is an opportunity to finish. That's when you button mash. That's when you get fucking crazy. Just a little bit, right? You don't have to red line for the rest of the round, but like sprint, right? Sprint 15, 20 seconds, put it on him. You know what I mean? Put the pressure on him. Let him throw something, right? Get ready for the counter and then put the pressure on him back again. You know what I mean? It just seems like there was an opportunity, but he doesn't. I'm assuming to me, it seemed like he didn't want to get caught with something, right? He didn't want to rush in, get caught with something, and then everything he just basically did was for nothing.
I mean, look, you know what they say, the last thing a fighter loses is their power, and Anthony Smith might have been a little bit hurt throughout that fight and shut down, but this is still 205. These are still big boys, and the last thing Johnny Walker wanted, and Kavanaugh in his corner would be for him to fight a great 13 minutes of a fight and then think that he's going to swarm at the end and get caught. I think it's a testament to his discipline that has been sort of instilled in him by John Kavanaugh, which I think is fantastic. I think John Kavanaugh has sat him down and has been like, look, for this weight class, you have great size, you have great attributes, and you have great power for 205. You need to be patient in there. Calm down. We need to take the edge off and see how far you can go with this. And so far, so good with this little renaissance of his career.
Yeah.
So, congrats to him, man. Let's talk about matching these boys up. Omar, if you were the matchmaker of the UFC, Who would you go with next for Mr. Johnny Walker?
I keep forgetting who this man has fought.
He has now beaten Anthony Smith, Paul Craig, and Cutelaba 3 in a row. Before that, he had back-to-back losses to Jamal Hill, who took his soul, and Thiago Santos.
Jamal Hill, who took his soul. Well, he's definitely not going to be fighting Jamal Hill anytime soon. I can tell you that shit. I mean, he's at the top of the division here. You know what I mean? He's been kind of hanging around here. He's in a weird spot because he's lost to Krylov not too long ago. Krylov is on his way up as well. I don't know if we really need to run that one back necessarily, but in the UFC rankings, they are both tied for number 5 at this point. It has been 3 years. Maybe it's time to run that one back at this point.
Okay. What about you, Mark?
Yeah, I considered the same. It's a little tough at the top of light heavyweight because we still don't know for sure, right, if we're getting Hill and Yuri. Like, I feel like one day we saw a report that it was targeted, and the next day they said Yuri's probably not ready. So, like,
yeah.
I don't know what's happening there. I don't know if that means Magomed's going to get a title shot. Now we just found out Jan is booked against Alex Pereira, who's moving up. So it kind of leaves these 3 guys in the 2 Omar just mentioned, Nikita Krylov and Johnny Walker, and then the returning Alexander Rakic, who is supposedly due for a fight announcement here. So since Krylov and Johnny Walker already fought, I think I'd rather see one of them get Rakic. I don't know what that means for the one that doesn't get Rakic, but I'll say Johnny Walker and Rakic is my fight.
I like it.
Do you think they're gonna make Magomed fight one more at this point? Magomed's gonna be the one end up getting screwed out of all this.
Yep.
Yeah,
because he might be the one to get Rakic at this point.
If Yuri's not ready, and they already booked Jan now, I got to think it's Magomed that's fighting Hill right now. Like, who else would fight Hill? Unless Hill's just going to continue waiting. But he kind of said that he doesn't want to wait past summer.
I hope they put him in then at that point. Because otherwise, what is he waiting for? You know, he's going to get stuck in that position where he's been waiting for so long, everything's going to move without him.
Yeah. That's kind of my guess, unless Yuri's suddenly ready. Who knows what to trust on him? I feel like the news on him is always all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk quickly about Anthony Lionheart Smith. So he had a 3-fight win streak going with Devin Clark, Jimmy Crute, and Ryan Spann falling victim to him. But now he has lost back-to-back fights once again to Ankalaev and now Johnny Walker. Mark, what do you think? What's next for Anthony Smith?
I think he might not love it, but he has fought a lot of these dudes already, so I want to use Anthony Smith to test an up-and-comer at this point. I feel like coming off this loss, that's kind of the role he should be filling. So wherever you want to go, could be like an Azamat Mirzakhanov, could be it's Zachukwu, who's hot, even a Carlos Olberg if you want to really jump him up. Just one of these hot young dudes at light heavyweight, I kind of feel like is what Anthony Smith should be doing right now.
I like it. Zachukwu would be great. Omar, any other ideas? Any other names you would throw out there for Anthony Smith?
I mean, for me right now, I'm going to double check if this man has a fight lined up. Because every time I pick something, Sons of Bitches has always got something going on. Okay. I think this is the rankings for me don't, I mean, I guess they make sense. I don't know what Mark has Anthony Smith at right now, but just his performances have not been, they haven't been working for me. And the other person I feel like his performances haven't been working for me is Dominic Reyes. And believe it or not,
going to go Reyes.
And believe it or not, as Mark alludes to how Anthony Smith has fought all these dudes at light heavyweight, these motherfuckers have never crossed paths.
Yep.
So make it happen because they're both looking like hot garbage lately.
Yeah. No, that's what I thought you were going to do. And I considered it
I
myself.
don't know what you want me to do, dog. I don't know what you want me to do.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to very exciting fight in the welterweight division. Ian Machado Garry, round 1 TKO over Daniel D-Rod Rodriguez. Oh my goodness. The official time, let me pull it up real quick. 2:57 of round number 1. Oh, yeah,
Ireland, baby.
Ireland.
Let's
that's
go.
Right. Omar
Let's
is referencing
go.
his
Fucking
McGregor t-shirt.
Shamrock and shit. Let's go.
Mark, give us
know
your
if that's
take
what
of the
that is.
first round finish for Ian Garry over the very talented welterweight in Daniel Rodriguez.
Who wants to hate on Ian Garry now?
Line
Who
them up.
wants to doubt this man now? I remember after, I want to say it was his second fight, the Darian Weeks fight, everyone saying how he got exposed and all this, and why were they hyping this guy, and he had nothing to show in there, and yeah, he won, but he squeaked by and all this. He's 5 fights into his UFC career, and he's already a ranked fighter. So much for all of that nonsense. And I said it when he came. I said that he is the hyped European prospect who has a real chance to be ranked, and not Paddy Pimblett. And damn if that has not played out thus far.
Yep.
This dude is a problem, man. He has plenty of natural gifts that he already came in with. He's got the size. He's got the speed. Both footwork and hand speed, all of it. He's got the natural timing for sure. But you can also see his progression every single fight. There's visible improvements each and every time we see him. And it's because of his mind, man. That's my belief. He has a mind for the game. He's got the focus for it. He wants to learn from everyone. You heard them talking on the broadcast about how he's got all these plans to travel to Brazil to like immerse himself in some big jiu-jitsu thing. Then he's going to go to New Zealand and train with Izzy because he feels like his striking style can help him. Like he is really a dude who feels committed to this game, and he has himself at a point right now where he is really dialed in. To do that to D-Rod with the ease that he did it is a very, very big statement in the welterweight division. It was a beautiful setup for the head kick. He got D-Rod thinking body as he was blasting it a few times. He knocked him down. It was a great follow-up on the ground, gave him no chance to recover, and that is a huge fucking win for Ian Garry, or Ian Machado Garry, which
That's right.
I guess I have to get used to saying here.
That's right. Newlywed Ian Garry. I think he and his wife have combined last names.
So it's actually kind of a cool story for a quick sidebar. His wife had a kid already whose last name is Machado. So he didn't want him and his wife's last name to become Garry and the kid not have their name. So they chose Machado Garry so that they could all have the Machado.
That's so nice. Oh, my God. What a
I
fucking great guy.
I had actually thought about doing that with my wife's name because in Nicaragua that's actually pretty common. They'll combine the last names and
A lot
bro,
of
I
South
found
American
out
places do that.
I found out there's like family crests and shit. Like it's very fucking apparently medieval and all this other kind of stuff. A lot of families have family crests that go back hundreds of years. Anyway, long story short, I don't know what the story was.
Ian Garry, head kick. What do you think?
Oh, yes, Ian Garry. Motherfucker's a beast. Yo, what did everybody pick? Who has the picks written down? Because I know we all had Ian Garry.
I need to write the picks down again. I need to get back on that.
I thought we had them written down. I thought that's what we were doing.
I
Is the market-
just write down the who. I don't write down the how.
What in the hell?
But I know that I said UD. I said I was debating if he could catch him, but I went UD in the
I
end.
don't remember.
Yeah, I feel like I went UD as well. But Jesus Christ, the precision from that kid is a real problem. And you can see the distance management. You can see it and it's I don't want to compare him to Conor McGregor, but you can see in the style, the way that he moves and the approach to his distance. He keeps a very lengthy distance, and he can because of the length of his legs, and he uses them very, very effectively. And the way he was setting up that kick was just... Man, that shit is crazy. The way that people can manipulate the body and manipulate the mind in the middle of a fight, because he's got... I mean, it's like going fishing. It's literally like going fishing. Like he's kicking him to the body, kicking him to the body, kicking him in the leg, kicking him to the body, right? And now you've got D-Rod totally accustomed to wanting to block to the body, wanting to catch the kick, wanting to do something to defend him from continuing to beat on his ribs. And so when that head kick comes, you could see it and you can replay it, you could slow it down, you could do whatever you like. You could see him completely biting on that kick. His whole shit is exposed. All of it. No block, no arm, nothing. Totally gone. And the kick lands square in his face. And D-Rod is a beast because a lot of people would have dropped right there. And he ate it, and as much as he could, stumbled back and ate some more shit on the ground, and that was all she wrote. Ian Garry's a real problem, and I think people who don't take him seriously, which I want to say D-Rod did not take him seriously. If you don't take him seriously, he's going to eat you alive.
Yeah, with one caveat I'll throw in there just to play devil's advocate, because I definitely picked Ian Garry for this as well. At 170 pounds, the upper echelon of this division is a shark tank of grapplers.
Agreed.
I was just
And my
gonna say
man
this.
needs to book that red eye for Brazil if he's planning on doing that, to sharpen up those mat skills, man, because he is a dynamic kickboxer. But like I said, 170, the top 170 is filled with wrestlers and world-class jiu-jitsu guys, and he's gonna have some real tests ahead of him.
Yeah,
And he's
fun
there.
fact.
I think he's there. He's ready.
I was
He's
going to
like,
say,
let's
fun
go.
fact,
12 and
he's in Brazil, though. He literally went to
Or no.
Brazil
Isn't his
after
wife
his fight.
Brazilian?
yes.
Yep, he went down there to meet her side of the family for the first time. So he'll be in Brazil for quite some time. Who knows what he does down there with his time?
That's awesome.
Yeah, supposedly he had these big plans of training with these different jiu-jitsu beasts, so
I bet.
that's a good thing.
Isn't his wife like a famous Brazilian lady?
That
I have
don't
no
know.
idea.
I couldn't tell you. But I was about to make a similar point, which is that as much as we are hyping up Ian Garry here, and deservedly so, he has not fought anything resembling a wrestler or grappler in his career yet. Other than, I guess, Darian Weeks is a wrestler, but he is a significantly lower level of a wrestler than the guys we are going to be seeing coming up
100%.
here. So there are certainly questions that are still to be answered that we haven't even really seen asked yet of Ian Garry.
Okay. Like it. Speaking of these other potential future opponents for Ian Garry, let's talk about who his next opponent could perhaps be. The former Cage Warriors welterweight champ Ian Garry, now 5-0 in the UFC. Of course, still undefeated, now 12-0 as a pro. Omar, talk to me about who is next for the future Ian Garry at welterweight, in your opinion.
We should make a little caveat here, just going forward, that apparently him and Vicente Luque will probably never fight. Seems like they're really close boys.
Oh, really?
Apparently. I found that out myself recently during one of his interviews with Ariel. So that apparently is not going to happen maybe ever. So I would just throw that into people's consideration.
Does that apply to Gilbert Burns then as well, I guess? Because they all train in the same place.
I don't know. Maybe that question hasn't come up because Gilbert is so high up in the rankings.
But I bet it
maybe
does. Because, yeah, they all train together regularly, those three.
Yeah. It might be a thing going forward. Who knows? But Gilbert Burns is also, I don't want to say the end of his career, but he's at a very different point in his career, so it might not affect it as much as a Vicente Luque at this point would, because I think Vicente Luque is,
fair.
while not an up-and-comer, is still trying to get his real crack at the top, so to say.
Yep.
But the call-off in Neil Magny, I think, I don't hate it. I really don't hate it. I think there are some valid points there. I think Neil Magny separates the boys from the contenders, and Neil Magny is, and to take Ian Garry's specific words, Neil Magny is good everywhere, but he's not necessarily great everywhere. But the reality is, if you're not better than him, then you don't really deserve to be at the top of the division. Yeah. And I think Ian Garry has a lot of the skills to beat Neil Magny. Neil Magny's a dog, though. And Neil Magny is probably going to look to take this fight to the ground. And I think we're going to see at least a shade of what Ian Garry has to offer on the ground, whether he's a guy who's on his back, holds guard, you know what I mean, not really trying to do much. Maybe he tries to stand up. Or maybe Ian Garry's got a ground game that we don't know about and he starts pulling shit. So maybe we'll see it in this fight. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, in terms of grappling, maybe Magny presents as something of a litmus test for Ian Garry. Mark, what about you? What do you think? Who's next for Garry if you had your druthers?
I'm fine with the Magny call-out as well. I mean, it would require Magny to beat Phil Rowe next month. If Magny doesn't win that fight, I don't think it makes much sense. So Magny would certainly have to come through in that regard for that fight to be booked. I will throw out, granted it's going away from him needing to fight a grappler, as we just said. If Stephen Thompson beats Michel Pereira, how fucking fun would Ian Garry and Stephen Thompson be? Just
yeah, man.
As a fan. But I do feel like we need to see him against some type of wrestler, grappler, so I'll say Neil Magny is probably what makes sense.
But what if, like, skill for skill, Stephen Thompson, like, pieces him up?
I just don't. I don't see.
Wonder Boy is just like the experience.
Oh,
It's just.
I'm gonna be
think
honest,
about
man.
what
That
he's done to other dudes. Like, remember when Vicente Luque was that striking killer, and then he fought Wonder Boy, and he was like, "Oh, I don't know how to move."
Right.
Dude, I honestly think it's going to be more like Robert Whittaker versus Stephen Thompson. Like, I really think it's going to be a lot of chess match. I think it's going to be a lot of feints, a lot of trying to find entries. I don't think it's going to... Vicente Luque is a different type. They're not the same type of striker.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all.
Right.
Yeah,
So the approach is totally
Muay Thai.
different. Right. The technique that's going to be involved in that fight is probably not going to allow for the barn burner that I think a lot of people expect it to be.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I want to see it for the technique.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, to your point about Luque, MMA is so saturated with Muay Thai. It's kind of like in baseball, lefties and righties. So many right-handed batters are not used to batting against a left-handed pitcher. They're just that there are so fewer lefties. So my shitty analogy is that MMA is so saturated with Muay Thai, and then you get a random karate expert in Wonderboy Thompson, and it makes a guy like a Vicente Luque, who's a Muay Thai striker, feel like he's a fish out of water.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
I
let's
think
move on from that.
there's
Not
not a
analogy, but the rest of it was good.
the reality is there's just not a ton of guys who have made karate that effective in that realm, right? Like the way that Stephen Thompson is able to use his distance management, his push kicks, his length, and his dexterity with his legs to go from one side to the other very quickly. You're not going to see that on the regular in MMA. A lot of these guys don't have the time to learn that shit from scratch. Stephen Thompson came in with a very different base, and the fact that he's got his wrestling to where it is a super big testament to his ability to be an athlete, because that's not simple and it's not easy to do. And he's fantastic. He's one of the best in the welterweight division. I think he's going to stay one of the best until he retires.
Quick update: the Heat won Game 1 against the Celtics.
I just saw that, too.
Jimmy
Let's
Butler.
go sports, baby.
Jimmy Butler dropped 35 points. Pretty good. He's not bad at basketball.
He's the man.
Let's talk about real.
My favorite basketball player.
He's so good. Daniel Rodriguez, very talented striker in his own right, now has dropped 2 in a row against Neil Magny and now Ian Garry. Mark, matchmaker hat back on for Daniel Rodriguez. Go.
I will throw out 2 choices. One of them is that if Randy Brown can beat Wellington Turman, I would love to see D-Rod and Randy Brown.
Yes.
The other option is justice for my man, Li Jingliang.
Run it back.
Let's go.
Run it back.
Let's go.
Okay, Omar. Do you want that? You just want that, don't you?
He just wants to say it.
Justice from my man,
Okay.
Li Jingliang.
All right. Okay. Moving right along here because of our late start, let us throw the rest of these fights from UFC Fight Night into our lightning round. Okay, if you don't know, if you're joining us for the first time, the lightning round is where I challenge Mark and Omar to give me their quickest takes, a sentence, perhaps, gentlemen,
Challenge.
or 2.
Perhaps not.
Okay, in the light heavyweight division, Carlos Ulberg defeated Ihor Potieria in the first round by TKO. Mark, go first.
Well, that didn't take long. I don't think any of us are too surprised. Ulberg landed a beautiful counter check left that landed behind the ear. He poured it on to a downed Potieria, and he himself decided when it had been enough, and he walked off. And Keith Peterson was just like, "Oh, okay, let me stop this thing." But rightfully so. Potieria was fucked up, and another huge KO for Ulberg, who is a scary man.
Keith Peterson said, "Let me put down my cigarettes and stop this fight."
Fucking guy.
Omar, go.
You know, for a nickname like No Nonsense, a lot of goddamn nonsense with Keith Peterson, man. You know what I mean?
Did you hear Dominic Cruz on the broadcast?
Yes,
We'll
he's
get to
still
this.
salty.
When it was during the Silva de Andrade versus Stamen fight, and the ref was fucking up, and was it Anik? He's like, just to let you guys know, the next 6 of the next 7 fights are ref by Dan Mergliotta and Keith Peterson, so we'll be okay there. And Tom Cruise goes, "Oh, great." Yeah, really reassuring.
He also said something during I think this fight with Olberg.
Oh, he did. You're
During
right.
the replay, he was like, "See, the fighter decided when it was over,
Yes,
not the
he
ref."
did. He did.
So salty.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
He said, "I've seen
I
that
mean,
once
he's-
before." That's what he said. Yeah, in the
He's
cage.
not wrong.
Okay.
He's not wrong.
Omar, did you give a lightning
No.
take? Sorry.
No. Oldberg
Just say
killed the guy
thanks.
though.
Okay.
He did. He took a body and he did Oldberg things. It's exactly what we expect from Carlos Oldberg. He just needs to do that on the regular, stay consistent.
He's so good.
And I love it.
He's so
so
good at
good.
205, man.
Yeah.
Watch
He
out
really
for
is.
Olberg.
I think, what is that? That's 4 in a row, I think, right?
Yeah, he's gonna get a name real.
I don't even think he's had what, one decision maybe.
Yeah, mostly finishes.
He's murdering guys left and right, and they're usually in the first round.
Yeah,
Yep.
four in a
Yep.
row and one decision. Yes.
Okay, moving on. Welterweight division. Alex Morono gets the submission win over Tim Dirty Bird Means in round number 2. Omar, go first.
Dog, I fucking told you. I don't know if I said submission,
Man,
but
I
I
took
had
Means.
Alex Morono.
I liked Means in this
I
fight
had
so
Alex
much.
Morono. I think Mark, you took Alex Morono too, right?
Yeah, I did.
Dude, Alex, I told you, bro. Alex Morono's a dog, man. That kid is a worker. This is one of those kids that shows up at the gym, probably didn't know jack dick all, and just worked from the ground up. And look at him now. The kid is his fight IQ is something that I don't think people give him enough credit for. And I think the more that his body is able to keep up with his mind, the more he's a goddamn problem. And you saw it in that fight. The kid is a dog. He's got what it takes, and he's got the technique behind it. I love it. I love Alex Morono. I'm on that train so hard right now.
Dirty guillotine. That was sick. Mark, your turn.
Yeah, dude, Tim Means had a pretty crafty veteran round 1. It was a
Yeah.
close round, and I thought Means was actually looking pretty good. But we've talked before about Morono having underrated jits, and Morono has underrated jits. He snatched up that guillotine beautifully. It's become a little bit of a go-to of his, but tightened it, found a way to kind of lean up, readjust, and then sit back, and it got real tight, and he got it done. And that might be the first time I've ever seen a guy whiff on a spinning back fist and transition the whiff directly into a guillotine. That was a wild little sequence from Alex Morono, but a big win.
Man. Loved his message too on the mic after the fight about the martial arts and how much he loves it. He's like,
Yeah, he's big on that.
go find a martial arts gym and saved
Dude.
his life or something.
I'm telling you, you can tell. You can tell. This is not a kid that's like a super athlete. You know what I mean? He's not he wasn't wrestling champion. He wasn't the star football player, whatever the fuck. This is a kid who's probably got fucked with a lot, right? Probably was in a weird place and learned how to defend himself. And when you get to that point, me and Mike were just talking about this, about the change inside when you work for this, right? For this skill, for this. Almost to a certain extent, it's hard to talk to anybody about training and not taking it as a way of life, right? Anybody that gets to this point, it changes the way you approach life. It changes the way that you see things and the way that you feel about yourself inside. And Morono is a perfect example. And I'm on it. I don't know. The story, man, is just so great. I fucking love that kid.
I actually know a guy who trains with a guy sometimes who regularly trains with Alex Morono. And that guy said that, you probably would hear this about a lot of people, but he said that he is the nicest guy and the hardest worker ever. So, checks out.
Yeah, dude.
Well. Let's move on. Featured bout on the prelims of this UFC fight night, Almeida versus Rozenstruik. Rozenstruik versus Almeida. Matt Brown knocks out Court McGee in the very first round. Omar, go.
I feel bad for Court McGee, bro. I want nice things for him. You know what I mean? And his approach to the fight was he's a grappler. He wants to maybe strike a little bit, kind of throw some hands a little bit, but all in all, he's trying to stop you from moving, trying to grapple, trying to hold on control, take you down. Matt Brown wasn't having it. And he made him pay a lot. And when he started striking with Matt Brown is one of the dirtiest motherfuckers in the game.
He's so good.
That man was ready to scrap with anybody. Junkyard, top of a roof, in a helicopter. Like, Matt Brown is a beast. And he found that chin and put Court McGee out. Matt Brown is like gray and still wrecking dudes. I don't know how he's doing it, man. He's such an animal, that guy.
Mark?
Matt the Immortal Brown, and it is an apt fucking nickname.
Yep.
To still be adding highlights like that to your resume at age 42 is nuts. That was a true one-hitter quitter, one-shot kill. Court McGee didn't know what planet he was on. And Brown had to endure some of the typical Court McGee wrestling and clinch work, but he got free, and man, did he ever find the off switch.
Amen to that, man. God bless Matt Brown. Dude,
tied Derek Lewis for most knockouts in UFC history.
That's right. Crazy.
Yeah. As a welterweight, that's dope.
Somebody said on the broadcast, I either saw this on the broadcast or online, that Matt Brown and Court McGee are the first two UFC fighters to fight each other who both died legally of drug overdoses.
Wow, that's crazy. I knew that about Court. I didn't know that about Matt Brown.
Yeah, maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. Okay, moving on. Heavyweight division, Carl Williams defeated Chase Sherman by unanimous decision. Mark, go first.
Carl Williams is a beast on the takedowns. He almost kind of mixes in that football background with his takedowns. Like, he really runs through you and kind of lifts like as you would in a tackle. But Chase Sherman fought well. He stuffed some takedowns after round one. Round two, he was landing pretty well. He was keeping it close. But Carl Williams did win that fight. He took round one after the takedown, and then he clearly won round three. These people scoring round three for Chase Sherman need to never watch MMA again. Carl Williams snapped his head back about a dozen times in that round. So I don't get that. Not an overwhelming performance, I guess, for Carl Williams, but still 2 wins in 2 fights in the UFC now, so good on him.
Omar.
Yeah, I had Carl Williams winning round 1, round 3. I think where round 3 got a little sketchy was the damage early on that I think Carl Williams took, especially to the leg, seeing him kind of buckle under some of those kicks. But he shot for the takedown and kind of worked from there. But my point is there might have been moments where people might argue that was enough to take the round. I don't agree, but I could empathize with your situation. You're just wrong.
Okay. At a catch weight of 140 pounds, the fighter with the longest name ever, Douglas Silva de Andrade. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Defeated Cody Stamann by UD. Omar, go first.
Dog, I'm going to be honest, man. The main thing that I keep running into having watched that fight is it looks like it sucks to fight either one of them. They both look like absolute animals in there. Like the pace that they set, the strength that both of them visibly seem to have seems goddamn terrifying. Not to mention the actual fight itself, right? To watch them both use all of that force and all of those goddamn muscles against themselves is crazy. Every time Cody Stamann went, there was one sequence where I think just out of pure like locking their bodies in place, Stamann had to like finagle this dude like a fucking Rubik's Cube in the air to then slam him on the ground.
Yep.
Like who they're, it's so crazy to see how strong they are and how much control they have over their bodies like that. I had De Andrade winning the fight. Cody Stamann is an animal for coming back in that third round and being able to put on a pace the way that he does. But I think Andrade had the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, this was a really fun fight. Definitely good performance from both guys. I'll make 2 points on this fight, and they're both about idiots. I'm sick of Twitter idiots, and I'm sick of idiot referees. For Twitter, there are so many people on Twitter calling this fight a robbery and saying that Stamann won 2 of the rounds. What other round besides round 3 do people possibly think he won? Like, leg kicks count. Body shots count. He was getting worked in the first couple rounds by Andrade. So Andrade absolutely rightfully won that decision. I get it that Cody had a huge round 3, but as much as you'll always hear me say I want pride-style scoring, We don't have it, and it was 2-1, clear as day. So there was zero controversy there. And then as far as idiot referees, I am so sick of these referees who have no idea what's going on. Stamen gets a great takedown in round 1. Andrade lands an illegal upkick. And not only does Andrade not get penalized, which is fine. You can give him a warning there. But then they take the position away from Stamen. So the only person who got penalized for Andrade's illegal upkick was Stamen. Make that make sense. It's an absolute joke. These guys truly have no clue. I don't know how they have jobs. I don't know how we have been at how MMA has been as mainstream as it is and as high level as it is for this long, and we still have referees who are that incapable reffing high level fights like this. It kills me.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah.
All right, at women's flyweight, Mandy Baum defeats Kim Ji-yoon by technical decision, split decision. The scores read 28-27 for Ji-yoon and 28-27, 28-27 for Baum. Mark, go first.
What fucking
Dog.
absurdity
Dog.
was this fight? Just
This shit, you might as well have done that at the shit in the parking lot. We didn't even need to be in the cage. Should have just been in the fucking parking lot.
absurd in every single way. I don't know if I've ever seen such a mess in my life. First, you have the kick after the bell from Kim for no reason. It seemed just
there was a reason. There was a reason.
What was the reason?
So Ji-yoon Kim, you saw that both of her legs were fucked up, and I think she had talked about it leading up to the fight. How she's had injuries in her knees.
Yeah.
And earlier there was that stand up where they stood up Ji-yoon Kim from bottom position where she was on top, right?
Yeah.
If you go back and you watch, Bohm hooks her leg as she's standing up and pulls on it, and you could see it tweaks her leg. You could see
So
Kim
she
react
waited
to
till
it.
after the round to try to get her back for it.
I mean, she was salty. I'm not agreeing with it. I'm just saying there was a reason. It wasn't out of left field. But that was a street fight, dog. She didn't give a fuck at that point. I mean, she gave the fight away.
Yeah, I mean, so we had the strike after the bell, then the knee to grounded opponent. I mean, she was doing everything she could to give the fight away. Then Mandy Bohm, or Boom, however you say, is going through this whole routine of getting hit with a baseball bat, just completely weird in every way, because we could all see the shot, and it was not like that level of a shot. I mean, who knows, but it was certainly a bit much. Then we have to go to a decision where we now have 2 consecutive 9-9 rounds, meaning we have to just score it basically off who won round 1, which was a toss-up round to begin with. So someone's going to be pissed either way. Fans are going to be pissed either way. And then the cards take about fucking 15 minutes to get into the octagon. It was just an absolute catastrophe in every sense of the word.
Oh, and then after the fight is over, after the fight is called, then the referee takes an additional point away. This was not before the fight was called.
that as well.
This
That
was
as well.
post-fight.
the
I've
ref
never
was just
seen that
never there.
shit. Bro, I've never seen that shit in my life.
Yeah.
After the fight is called, you take another point away. I mean,
They
I
were
get the
three
point.
Spider-Mans all looking at each other. Like,
Bro.
which of us can fuck this up worse?
It was such a mess. And
Okay, moving on.
spoilers, Ji-yoon Kim got cut.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yikes.
So did Chase Sherman, by the way.
Yeah.
And one other person in this card. Jessica Rose Clark, who we're going to get to in a minute.
Yeah.
Boom. Let's see. At a catch weight of 173 pounds, Brian Battle defeated Gabriel Green by knockout in round number 1. Mark, go first.
Excuse me as I burp into the microphone. Yeah, somehow I have a bit to say here about a 14-second fight.
Facts.
First off, how about Blonde Battle? I like the look for him. Secondly, how about the confidence this man came in with? The way he went through that intro, walked to the middle of the octagon, like arms up in the middle of the cage, taking it in from the crowd. I feel like that was some new vibes from Brian Battle, where he looked as if he had believed that he had leveled up. And then on the other end, Gabe Green, dude, you can't fight that way. You can't come out that hot and that crazy when dudes are completely fresh. Like, you're literally doing that is just flipping a coin, and you came out on the wrong side of the coin
Correct.
flip.
Yep.
So, it's a tough way to start a fight, but phenomenal counter from Brian Battle, and a huge way for him to bounce back and get buzzed right back on his name after kind of getting ground into dust by Fakhretdinov in the last one.
That's right. Omar, your take?
I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's hard for me to see exactly what the game plan was, because Mark's absolutely right. That was a firefight. You went in there, no setup, we didn't even do anything yet. We didn't shake hands. We didn't do nothing. Just motherfucker came in just swinging shit and just like Mark said, flipped a coin. There was no real technique there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And Bryan Battle, the thing that was to me the most impressive, well, go back and watch that fight. Bryan Battle's eyes are open the whole time. His eyes are fixed not even Gabe Green's eyes were fixed on the goddamn target the whole time. My man bit down in his mouthpiece, looked at Gabe Green, or looked at Bryan Battle's chest, and just started going ham and just hope for the best. And Bryan's eyes open, just missing stuff, maybe tagging him just at the end, moving nicely, whapa, and he cracks him so nasty. Gabe Green didn't even know what happened. I'm pretty sure there were moments where they started putting the camera on him while he was still sitting down, and I still don't think, after getting explained a couple times what happened, he knew what happened. It was not the best idea about going into that fight like that. I don't know if that was that the game plan? Like, that's concerning to me if like his whole camp came up with that. You know what I mean? That's a problem.
Yeah. Okay. Last one, women's bantamweight. I forgot how to say her name. Tainara Lisboa defeated Jessica Rose Clark by submission via rear naked choke in the third round. Omar, go first.
Before we continue, because we've been called out on it before, we do have to mention Bryan Battle did miss weight by like 3 pounds. So
I didn't even know that until I just heard Mike say the catch weight, and then I was wondering why it was catch weight. I didn't even realize that watching the broadcast.
Yeah, so he got to tighten that shit up. But still a good performance.
So it was only his second fight down at welterweight, so maybe he is still trying to hone it in on the cut.
Yeah. He looked good though.
Yeah.
This fight was kind of crazy, man. Jessica Rose Clark really had the approach of trying to take it down to the ground and trying to grapple as much as she could, but she looked outclassed, I think, in a lot of respects, even when it came to the ground. You know what I mean? Lisboa had a great approach when it came to countering. A lot of pressure was put down on Jessica Clark's head throughout that fight that didn't really let her capitalize on a lot of moments. She got her down a few times, was able to do anything with it. In fact, got reversed a couple times. She got fucking hip tossed a few times and went for a ride. And Lisboa, when got the opportunity, was piecing her up. Like Jessica Rose Clark's face by the end of that fight was battered and bruised, and she's gonna be feeling that for at least a week. I thought it was I'm glad the judges didn't rely just on takedowns alone, because Lisboa wasn't necessarily going for takedowns, and sometimes we see dumbass things like that. But Lisboa definitely, for me, won that fight without a doubt.
Well, I mean, she certainly won it because she choked her out.
Oh, right.
You're forgetting that ending.
I am, because it was at the very end of the fight, and it was just an ass beating anyway.
Yes, your mind was already thinking about what the cards were going to be, probably. Yeah. Another tough loss for Jessica Rose Clark. There was a time where she kind of looked like she was a fighter on the rise a bit. Not that she was going to be like a title contender, but that she was on the come up, and then it really just went the other way. Like, she seems to always be outdone as of late. Her game has started to feel like she's always the less dynamic fighter in the cage. Last fight, she really got outdone in the grappling. This fight, it was the striking. She's a tough girl, but I just don't know if she has enough in her game these days against these more evolved fighters. And Lisboa looked really good for a debut. Good takedown D, really fast hands, some slick jits. I mean, she showed it all off. That was a great debut.
That does it, boys, for this week's lightning round. And that does it for our recap of UFC Fight Night, Rozenstruik versus Almeida.